Senator Bach, I was hoping you could help me clarify something. I see here that you are testifying today as a former state senator, but we've seen some materials here that suggest you may be a registered lobbyist within the state of Minnesota to lobby on behalf of Twin Metals Minnesota. Is that correct?
Well, thank you for the question. I retired after almost 30 years in the state legislature.
Yes. Are you presently a registered lobbyist in the state of Minnesota for Twin Metals Minnesota?
Let me explain it to you.
Is it yes or no?
I'm going to give you a yes or no.
I
retired on January 3rd and started a consulting business, an LLC. I have a number of clients. Some of them require registration with the Minnesota Campaign Finance Board.
And is Twin Metals Minnesota one of those clients?
Twin Metals is one of them, and I did disclose that.
Okay, so was that disclosed with the state? I failed to see it in your opening statement. I failed to see it in the statement you just delivered here. And it is, to clarify, Twin Metals Minnesota, it is that company's leases that were canceled by the Biden administration that are partially subject to the matters of this hearing today. But I want to thank you. I think it's important for us to have clarity. I am not sure why that detail was excluded. I think it is highly relevant present experience that should be disclosed.
Ranking Member Ocasio-Cortez, it was disclosed in his written testimony.
In his written testimony, but not the opening statement.
And it's required that he did disclose that.
And okay, but I would like to note it was not included in the opening statement. And Mr. Chura, you are employed by Minnesota Power, an elite company, correct?
That's correct. But I'm here today representing jobs for Minnesotans.
And Minnesota Power supplies electricity in northeastern Minnesota. Mines in northeastern Minnesota are one of the largest customers of Minnesota Power, correct?
Correct.
I would like to submit to the record here an article from the Star Tribune citing that 74% of Minnesota Power's energy does not go to Minnesotans. It goes to the taconite mines and paper mills. So these mines are one of the largest customers of Minnesota Power. I also want to reiterate what we have heard here today. We have two witnesses that have connections, present connections, not past, in stakeholders with a financial interest in advocating for large new mines in the state, regardless of whether or not it would result in economic benefits. I think this is important and relevant connections that should be clearly communicated. Ms. Rahm, we've heard plenty on that so far, but I want to talk a little bit about the harms that this project would actually cause to the ecosystem and the people who live in the Boundary Waters area. You've shared that nearly 70% of Minnesotans support a permanent ban on sulfide or copper mining in the Boundary Waters and headwaters. How have industry lobbying, like what we've heard today, distorted some of the on-the-ground community's perspective?
Thank you, Ms. Ocasio-Cortez, for your question. I'm here as a volunteer. For the last 10 years, constituents of Minnesota, oftentimes the 8th Congressional District, and also Americans from across the country, have been coming to Washington, D.C. to plead our case as volunteers, as people who love the Boundary Waters, who work in the Boundary Waters, have businesses there. Antofagasta last year spent over $1 million on lobbyists to lobby within in Washington, D.C. in opposition to the volunteers like me that you're seeing here. And that doesn't count Mr. Bach, who's a Minnesota lobbyist. So there's been a significant financial unevenness, if you will, with the American people against this giant billionaire mining company.
And I apologize, and feel free to continue your sentence, but I would also would like to hear on if you could speak more to the science that leads us to believe that this project would be harmful to the ecosystem as well.
Thank you. The science is overwhelming. It's been peer-reviewed, it's been published. It demonstrates that a sulfide ore copper mine in the location of a twin metals mine would pollute the boundary waters. It is not a matter of if, it is a matter of when. The EPA has said this is acid generating ore. Twin Metals never was able to prove that was otherwise. And most recently, the state of Minnesota said to Twin Metals, you can't put your tailings waste facility on our land because that will expose us to potential Superfund liability. So it's the consensus of the scientific community that this would be, would pollute, damage, and destroy the boundary waters.
Thank you. I yield back.